Alright, everybody want to go crazy over Colin Kaepernick and how he apparently didn't fucking say the Pledge of Allegiance or some bullshit. And he said that he didn't do it because of the fact that America, and especially the police, don't give a fuck about black people. That is true. I mean, the Pledge of Allegiance even says with liberty and justice for all. Last time I checked, there were like dozens upon dozens of black men, women, and children that have been killed by the police, and they didn't receive justice in any shape or form. That doesn't bother y'all, though. Y'all not upset over that. Y'all would rather get mad at Colin Kaepernick not putting his hand over his chest and saying the Pledge of Allegiance. Innocent people losing lives is cool with you, but him not saying the pledge bothers you. Why? Tell me why. And Colin, bro, people are all up in his mentions, sending him hate mail, calling him an N-word, calling him a fucking terrorist. Really? A terrorist? Let me take a second and explain to you exactly why you can go fuck yourself. Y'all want to say, oh, well, he doesn't like America, but he's more than happy to sit here and collect these American paychecks. That's millions of dollars for football. Shut the fuck up. Shut up. Y'all didn't value him as a person before any of this anyways. To you, he was just some guy on your football team scoring your points and making y'all money. The second he becomes an individual, like an actual person with a name and a brain and a thought process and an opinion, and he voices that, y'all are gonna tell him to be quiet? You cannot keep shushing black people in America because they don't like how they're being fucking killed in the fucking streets. And y'all want to say some shit about the veterans. Y'all don't even give a fuck about the veterans. When's the last time that you donated to a charity to help out our veterans? When's the last time you went to the soup kitchen so you can dish out soup for our homeless veterans? But now, all of a sudden, people got like the American flag tattooed on their chest and you're yelling, America! And they're the best patriots in the world. Bro, fuck y'all fake ass problematic motherfuckers, bro.
Well, then everyone loses their minds.
San Francisco 49er quarterback Colin Kaepernick refusing to stand for the national anthem.
We take a look at the bizarre history of the anthem and why outrage may be pointed in the wrong direction. This is a reality check you won't see anywhere else.
When there's significant change, and I feel like that flag represents what it's supposed to represent, and this country is representing people the way that it's supposed to, I'll stand.
Well, that was San Francisco 49ers quarterback Colin Kaepernick explaining why he says he will not stand for the national anthem. The internet, as you know by now, has exploded over the decision to sit, including fans setting fire to Kaepernick's jersey. But interestingly, Kaepernick won't stand for an anthem that, as it turns out, celebrates the death of slaves. And I'm willing to bet you had no idea about this, because the only part of the story that we sing is the first verse. And yet, if you keep singing, The Star-Spangled Banner says much more than you might think. Let's start here because the Star-Spangled Banner came to be during the War of 1812. It was written by Francis Scott Key. The War of 1812 was a war in which the United States attempted to take Canada from the British Empire. But the U.S. underestimated the British, who were able to overrun Washington, D.C. The banner itself, it was written in 1814 about the Battle of Fort McHenry in Baltimore. But as explained in an article by The Intercept, one of the missing parts of history is that part of the reason the British have been so successful during that war was their active recruitment of American slaves. Whole families found their way to the ships of the British, who accepted everyone and pledged that no one would be given back to their owners. Adult men were trained to create a regiment called Colonial Marines, who participated in many of the most important battles, including the August 1814 raid on Washington. Then on the night of September 13th, 1814, the British bombarded Fort McHenry. Key, seeing the fort's flag the next morning, was inspired to write the lyrics for the Star-Spangled Banner. So without question, American slaves played a role in fighting against Americans in that battle. About 6,000 former slaves total fought with the British to secure their own freedom. And Key, he speaks of them when he writes this: "No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, and the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave." Which candidly turns the anthem as we know it on its head. See, for those slaves, this was not a land of the free. Reality check. During the War of 1812, there actually was one group fighting for their freedom. And the Star-Spangled Banner celebrates America's triumph over them.
There's a lot of things that need to change. One specifically is police brutality. There's people being murdered unjustly and not being held accountable. Cops are getting paid leave for killing people.
So what you need to know is that for all the outrage over Colin Kaepernick, let's end here with a question. In 2015 alone, 102 unarmed black men were killed by police nationwide, and hundreds have died every year. 2014, remember this guy, Eric Gardner? He was choked to death by police because he had sold loose-leaf cigarettes. No officer was charged. 12-year-old Tamir Rice in 2014, he was shot to death within 2 seconds of officers arriving on the scene while holding a toy gun on a playground in Cleveland. And no officer was charged there either. Even this year, 2016, Philando Castillo, he was shot to death in Minneapolis. He had a concealed carry license. He never touched his gun. Yes, he had a gun on him, but he told the officer about it. And yet he was shot to death anyway. And these are only 3 faces of the hundreds of unarmed black men who have died at the hands of police officers. Now here's the question. If you feel outrage when you see this picture of Kaepernick sitting down, and yet you do not feel any outrage when you see these images, well, quite candidly, isn't that part of the problem? That's Reality Check. Let's talk about that tonight on Twitter.
How you doing, Stephen A?
I got a lot on my mind. Let's go.
Both of them.
Okay, on that note, let's do it. And we start with the ongoing controversy involving, of course, Colin Kaepernick. Former Super Bowl quarterback and current CBS commentator Boomer Esiason blasting Kaepernick for sitting during the national anthem at a CBS event Tuesday, telling Bob Glauber of Newsday, quote, "I cannot say in the strongest, most direct way that it's an embarrassment, and it's about as disrespectful as any athlete has ever been. The NFL football field is not a place for somebody to further their political ambitions. Put on that blue police uniform and put the shield on and see what it's like to put your life in harm's way every single day. And then get back to me when you're making $35,000 or $40,000 a year as opposed to $11 million that he's making." Stephen A., did Boomer cross the line with those comments?
He crossed the line. And the reason why I believe Boomer Esiason crossed the line, and I really, really wish this was one of those days where he wasn't working for CBS and I was working for ESPN, because I would gladly show up on his radio show to tell him why I think he crossed the line. It's one of those situations where Boomer Esiason, I hate to sit up there and say it to you, but you'd have to be black to understand. Because not being a black man, being as white as you are, to say the statement that you said just comes across as something incredibly insensitive to what it's like to be a black man in America. There's just no other way to slice it.
Boomer Esiason not only had comments on Colin Kaepernick's silent protest, but also on the NBA players who opened the ESPYs with a socially conscious call to action. More specifically, Carmelo Anthony, Esiason, speaking at a CBS event Tuesday, started by telling Bob Glauber of the Newsday, if Carmelo Anthony walks on the court in a Knicks uniform and starts in with this, I think it's going to create a lot of problems. I don't think it's their right to do it on a court which a team pays them millions of dollars to perform a job. Stephen A., how should Melo feel about these suggestions?
He should be disgusted with it, just the same way that I am, because once again, like we started off the show about Colin Kaepernick, as it pertains to Boomer Esiason's comments, the same holds true with his comments about Carmelo Anthony. So let me get this straight. Because you're making millions of dollars to play basketball, you can't peacefully protest? We're not talking about Carmelo Anthony walking out to the Garden and refusing to play basketball or interrupting the game or not giving the paying patrons what they came to see. We're talking about what if, hypothetically speaking, Carmelo Anthony decided to sit on the bench during the national anthem. Boomer Esiason is saying, excuse me, you'd cut him too? I just, listen, again, I want to emphasize, he's got some damn nerves. Because essentially, he's basically trying to sit there and say, oh, you can protest, but here's when you should do it. And here's how you should do it. Well, clearly he hasn't protested at any time in his life because that's the antithesis of what a protest is supposed to be about. We looked at the folks at the ESPYs, Melo, LeBron, CP, D-Wade. We applaud them. We definitely should applaud them for being conscientious observers, superstar athletes with wealth and fame who are willing to bring attention to the violence and the need to put it to an end to the best of our ability. We applaud them for that. But we have to also recognize that they said things that nobody could disagree with. But the second Colin Kaepernick does something that is disagreeable, you've got Boomer Esiason that wants him cut, doesn't want him having an NFL career, even though Boomer Esiason damn well knows that the NFL encourages you to stand, but doesn't enforce it, doesn't mandate it. He knows that the laws of our nation, based on our First Amendment rights in the Constitution, stipulate that Colin Kaepernick has that right. If you look at the history of the flag, of the national anthem, then you're going to think about black folks, okay, who were denied rights even at the time that the national anthem was constructed. And so when you look at it from that perspective, he's clearly coming from a different stratosphere. I can understand that. I can understand a level of ignorance to it. But then to turn around and act like people should be punished for it, in the case of Colin Kaepernick, be cut, or to threaten that if Melo decided to do something like that, it would be a problem. Here's what our problem should be with Carmelo Anthony. We want the Knicks past the first round. That's it. There's nothing else that Carmelo Anthony has done. He's a good man. He's a good family person. He's got a wonderful wife, wonderful family and friends. He represents the New York Knicks organization exemplary, doesn't get into any trouble. And by the way, no one gives Carmelo Anthony credit for what he goes in the city of Baltimore and tries to do to quell the violence and to contribute to the to the impoverished in that community and beyond. Carmelo Anthony is a good brother. I got one problem with him and one problem only. I appreciate the gold medals, but damn it, I want an NBA championship. That's it.
Colin Kaepernick sitting during the national anthem has, of course, been pouring out over the past few days. Everybody has weighed in, including Cam Newton now, who has had a lot of criticism come his way, so he's no stranger to that as well. He sat down with our Trey Wingo to offer his thoughts. Take a listen.
Who am I to say that it's wrong? Who am I to say that it's right? Either or is still personal. What I can't, fathom is how does 1/8 of an inch, something so small, be the difference in such a big commodity in our whole lifetime? And that's the thickness of our skin, 1/8 of an inch. And under that, we're all the same color, and that's the big picture. A lot of scrutiny happens when the athletes start talking about, race. But the truth of the matter is we just got to do right by each other, no matter what color you are. Certain things that has happened in our life, in our lifetime, is kind of embarrassing to be affiliated with, but it still happens. But who am I to say, Colin, you're wrong?
Right.
And who am I to say, bro, that you're right? Because we're all, we all have and are, have the right to think whatever we want to think. And I respect that by everybody.
Stephen A., do you like, love, or hate Cam's comments?
I hated him. And I was incredibly disappointed at what he had to say because, to be quite honest with you, he said nothing. I mean, he would have put Fred Astaire, Michael Jackson, and MC Hammer to shame all at the same time with how much he moonwalked around those comments. It made absolutely no sense whatsoever. Let me throw this out. We understand that it's not fair. It shouldn't happen, but it doesn't negate the fact that the insidious behavior on the part of folks throughout American history has existed, and it's held folks back. That's why a Warren Moon is so relevant. It's why Randall Cunningham is so relevant. It's why a Steve McNair was so irrelevant. A Doug Williams meant so much or whatever. Because that 1/8 of an inch of which is your skin, and the color of it has been used as an excuse to minimize and deprecate and do everything that you can to keep a nation of people down. Cam Newton is smart enough to know this. So why not just say it? Why, or better yet, if you're not going to say anything, why do the damn interview? Because, again, Fred Astaire, MC Hammer, Michael Jackson, he'd have put them all the same. Add New Edition into the mix, too. He'd have put them all to shame, the way that he danced around this issue. Now, let's take this into consideration, Max. 1870, the year 1870, the 15th Amendment to the Constitution gave all men the right to vote. All men. But guess what? Some states passed laws designed to prevent black men from voting after the amendment was added. Poll taxes and literacy tests were used to keep impoverished citizens who were not taught to read from casting their vote during elections. But Martin Luther King held a march in Selma that led to the president to pass the Voting Rights Act. What year was that? 1965. Okay? We're talking about 95 years later. So if the laws were in place, it didn't stop folks from discriminating against those based on their 1/8 of an inch of skin who had a darker pigmentation. Cam Newton may not know the particulars of that, but he knows what it is. He knows what it is to be prejudiced against. He knows what racism is. He knows what bigotry is. But when you get interviewed by Trey Ringo, you're going to dance around it and have absolutely nothing to say. I was incredibly disappointed in him because here's what it comes down to for me. What I saw was a superstar athlete who was the reigning league MVP, who stars in the NFL right now for the Carolina Panthers, thinking about his brand. And is that new to us? We got guys that are millionaires 10, 20, 50, 100 times over, scared to take a position. But they will come to me, or they will come to some reporter that's making $80,000 a year or $50,000 a year, and they'll say, you do it, because we got something to lose. When you have everything to the point where even if you did lose something, you and your generation is still set for years, if not a generation to come. It's this level of fearfulness that's alarming to me. Because let me tell you something right now, Max Kellerman and Molly. I promise you, you're going to see black athletes that got a problem with me today. I promise you. They're going to look at me, man, bump Stephen A., man. Yo, man, Stephen A., oh, man, this dude, I don't understand what's wrong with him. But I'm up here having a fight every day for one thing or another, and people who are set for their lives got no heart. None.
They're trying to get attention so that people will listen to them.
This is our way of trying to get some media attention because they are ignoring us, they're ignoring the anti-war movement, they're ignoring the anti-government movement. We love our country, but we cannot trust our government anymore.